As a letting agency, you're in business to make money, and that's primarily done by charging some form of management fees for providing property management services. In this video, we look at the various fee structures employed by agencies and how you can set up your Elevate account and your properties and tenancies to automatically apply these. In our experience, we have found the most common management model is to charge the landlord a percentage of rent collected on a property, and the system is pre-configured to charge 10% of rent collected, the most common setup that we encounter. For starters, let's see how to change this default percentage if you use a different value for most of your tenancies. If you're the Elevate account owner or a user with appropriate access, you can go to the settings menu in the top right. We're interested in the lettings configuration at this stage and the default management fees in particular. You'll see the default out of the box setting is 10% of rent collected and the default letting fee is £250, but you can change these if you need to. If you employ a fixed fee per period instead of a percentage-based model, then simply set this default to 0%. We'll look at such an example in a moment. Remember, these are only defaults and you can override them for individual properties and tenancies. So we'll just leave this at 10% for the moment. When you add a new property, the management fee will be preset to this system default, and then you can either leave that or change that on a per property basis. Let's look at an existing tenancy which is set up with a 10% management fee. I'm going to record a rent receipt of £1,000 here just so that we can see the fee being automatically applied. Don't worry about the actual detail of the receipt itself, as there is a dedicated video on rent receipts. But basically, I'm just recording a payment from the tenant into the client account with today's date and allocating that to the outstanding rent. Once I've saved this, if I click through to the property, from the balance I can see immediately that a 10% fee has been applied, and I can click through to see the full charge details. In this demo, our test agency is VAT registered, so VAT will automatically be applied to all fees, but obviously that may vary for your own agency. If your management fee changes over time, you can modify this via the property using the Management Fees menu. Either modify an existing fee setup if it hasn't already been used to apply charges, or just set up a new percentage from today or next month onwards, and that'll apply to all future receipts. Perhaps you charge a fixed fee or a flat fee per period instead of a percentage of rent collected. In this case, you should set your management fee percentage to 0, and we will now look at how to set up a recurring fixed charge. Most likely you'll only be charging your fee while there's an active tenancy on the property, so you should set this up via the tenancy rather than the property. I have a tenancy already set up here to start next month, which I can access via the Properties List Tenancies menu, and then filter for future tenancies. Clicking through to the associated property for a moment, we can see that a 10% fee will be applied on all rent receipts, so we need to remove that first. On the property, via the Management Fees menu, delete that 10% record. If fees had already been applied using that entry, you would just create a new 0% entry going forward to supersede the 10% setup. We'll then want to click through to the tenancy, and via the Rent and Charges menu, we'll set up a recurring fee to start from the current month and then apply each month going forward. So click to add a charge. You might wonder what type of charges you would apply other than just a management fee, but it's equally possible to recharge a tenant, for example, for maybe the landlord is paying for broadband or some other utility and we just want to get that money from the tenant and pass it on, separate from rent. In this case, select the property and the type of charge, for example a management fee. Select the start date, for example the tenancy start date or today's date, and then define the recurring frequency and the value. Note here that we always specify values ex VAT on the system. Charges will only ever be backdated to the system start date, not necessarily back to the start of a pre-existing tenancy, which is actually what you would want anyway when you think of it. This will apply a management fee each period so long as the tenancy is active. You can set up recurring fees against a property regardless of whether a tenancy exists or not, for example an annual renewal fee, by following roughly the same steps on the property itself via the Financial Charges menu, but we find that most people will apply them via the tenancy. To see all charges applied over any period, you can list these via the Accounting Reports menu and then All Invoices Charged. This list can be filtered by date, status and charge type, and is exportable in CSV format, including a version which is ready to import directly into Xero.